Welcome to today's webinar, Oracle Supply Chain Cloud, now the first choice for JD Edwards. My name is Deb Bryant, and I'm the Marketing Coordinator at AVATA, and I will be facilitating today's webinar. Presenting for you are Jim Hetherington, VP of Sales at AVATA, and Ed Hayek, Supply Chain Solutions Consultant with Oracle. And now I will turn it over to you, Jim.
Thanks, Deb, and thank you to everybody for joining us this morning. As Deb had mentioned, the subject of our webinar today is, basically, if you're a JD Edwards shop, why we believe that Oracle Supply Chain Planning Cloud Solutions should be the first solutions you look at for what I'll call core supply chain planning. I have a few slides that get into some of that, and then we're joined by Ed, who will actually give us a product demonstration, and we're very thankful for that. I have exactly one slide here on AVATA. That's it. I do want people to know who we are, and then we'll get into today's content. Many of the people in the industry, both Oracle and the practitioners, know us as being one of the strongest supply chain management consultancies in the Oracle universe. I do want to make clear, and I think it's very relevant today, for today's conversation, that our other two service lines, both our JD Edwards service line, that includes serving this community in terms of supply chain management, but also core JD Edwards needs, be it upgrades, enhancements, full managed services, and transactional services related to Oracle's cloud solutions. That combination of both transaction capabilities and decision support and supply chain management capabilities really do make us a unique partner in terms of being a single source partner for all Oracle applications that you may need. Now, I'm going to define boundaries of supply chain planning, and both really for this webinar, but I think this is accurate. But this is one of those things where if you ask 5 people, you're going to get 7 or 8 answers, right? But when I talk about supply chain planning for today, I'm talking about on the demand side, creating a consensus demand forecast, a true one-number forecast for the firm, and balancing that with a supply picture where you can identify imbalances and similarly collaboratively decide how are we going to respond to those imbalances. And I think it's Tom Wallace has actually 2 definitions of S&OP. If I'm wrong about this, I'll probably hear about it, which is fine. But there's the executive S&OP that's strategic, it's long-term, it's in years, right? And I believe he termed operations S&OP as this monthly process of being able to sit down as a collaborative cross-functional team and look at our demand and our supply pictures and agree as a group what we're going to do to bring that balance in consistent with organizational objectives. And I've got up on the screen now this is a graphic of a very common consensus demand planning process, right? And I had a mentor in my space that rolled out demand S&OP to all DuPont businesses, and she had said every company should have a person to go to that can answer what is the forecast. And there's a role for technology here, clearly, right? And I'm not going to spend too much time on this. This is another webinar, another discussion. But the most important role of technology is to support what she had called is a business competence. This isn't just about the tool, and it's a competence that should be as important to a company as the sales competence is or the finance competence is. And often when that's not the case, firms don't mature. They don't get better at this. So technology requirements, and I'll talk a little bit about this on the supply side, it's less about modeling. I mean, there's a very important role of advanced planning and scheduling tools to bring this data together to, on the demand side, create a statistical forecast, which can take a lot of it away from human beings. Ask the humans where involvement is needed, where there's, you can't forecast it. There's a lot of volatility. You have new products, et cetera. So there's a role there. But it's more about promoting visibility for the people who need to collaborate, whether it's sales, whether it's marketing, whether it's finance people. In a way, they need to see the data to conduct this consensus meeting and agree to that one number. And I would say it's equally true on the supply side. If you've got a consensus demand picture and you go through that process and people have agreed to the number, you need to balance that with the realities of supply. So, I've got, an example of capacity issues, but it's not necessarily that. I worked in chemicals for many years, and inevitably, at the end of the month, you'd have a major customer call and say, look, we've got multiple suppliers for this, polyolefin, and we've had somebody that can't meet our need. It's opportunistic demand. Can you take it? If you take it, do you respond by adding capacity or shorting another customer, right? That type of demand and supply balance still requires a collaborative process internally. And we use the phrase guided resolution, and Ed's going to talk about that in terms of the role of technology to help steer people in the right direction to do that. But I've got a sentence down here that we feel very firmly about. Some people try and shortcut this by having the supply planning tool model and answer those questions for you. Now, both in the technology space and in the Oracle space. I mean, Oracle's got a number of very capable applications for optimizing a supply plan for maximizing revenue or minimizing costs or changeover times, right? Enforcing capacity or constraints. But if you as a firm have not had experience with doing that type of modeling, if you're starting it, if you're immature and you're trying to do a supply and demand balance and improve that, I don't want to say from scratch, people are doing it in Excel. If you're working in Excel and trying to go to a platform, don't ask the tool to solve for the team coming right out of the gate. I'm a very visual person, so there are levers that you can push and pull to make that demand and supply balance happen, especially on the supply side. Some of those lend themselves very well to being mathematically modeled, and some of them are like stepping in quicksand. And you learn that by sort of incrementing and phasing and maturing through this process. So I'm not suggesting here that you shouldn't have a supply planning tool that gives you a feasible schedule that's optimal given a certain circumstance. I'm just saying that if you're not experienced with that, have the tool highlight the imbalances and allow you to replan very quickly. That would be a very strong recommendation. In terms of the Oracle solutions to traditional value chain planning solutions for the J.D. Edwards community that serve this purpose, there are three. The mantra on the demand side, ASCP or rapid planning on the supply side, and APCC, the Advanced Planning Command Center, for reporting. As the mantra in ASCP, I see ASCP more than rapid planning out there. The mantra in ASCP, very capable products. They're not reporting or say, I'll call it business intelligence for the supply chain team, right? So the stack is usually these three products. Suffice to say, I'm not going to talk about integration today, but when it comes to integrating with J.D. Edwards, we've been doing this for almost 17 years now, right, since we've been founded, understanding what extracts have to feed the demand and supply planning tools, where they come from, and if you're going to push planning data back into J.D. Edwards. But I really want to put the footprint on the software side, because what we're going to look at is there are two basic reasons that we believe a J.D. Edwards shop who is immature, especially if you've not acquired some of these feature sets at all, should look at cloud first. One is just the overhead of bringing these applications traditionally into the firm. So if you're a J.D. Edwards shop, you've got Oracle database licensing. You've got requisite hardware with appropriate sizing, right? So it's I call it 3 to 4 tier architecture, whether it's database, application, web. You may have multiple, I think I'm in here, you may have multiple environments that you have to manage. And many of our JDE clients who are using value chain planning solutions reach out to us for maintenance and support because they don't have the internal ODI or Oracle apps, not just that database skills, but the apps database skills that you need. So this overhead, it's clearly worth it if you have this feature set and there are aspects about it that you need to bring in-house to support your business. But why cloud for JDE now? Well, you don't need the database licensing. hardware needs clearly go away, and you don't have to worry about the internal skills that you have. So when it comes to demand and supply balancing, I don't want to bring up a maturity curve of this, right? But a mature process to make intelligent decisions to guide demand and supply pictures that everyone else is marching towards. The feature sets in cloud offer you that without that overhead. And as a second, but it's not just sort of an add-on, it's a very important point. Reporting and analytics are now part and parcel of the cloud platform. And this is true of all Oracle Cloud solutions. We could be talking about GL. We could be talking about Oracle Financials. We could be talking about manufacturing. It just doesn't matter. It's not limited. I'm not talking about just the supply chain planning portion of it. But the cloud platform offers the end user the ability to create metrics and get the data that they need independent of IT in a way that is just not been the case before, and we're going to see that. So I hope that laid the groundwork for why we believe a J.D. Edwards shop looking at demand supply balancing should first look to these solutions. I think there's great value there. And with that, I will turn it over to Ed Hayek for the product demonstration. Ed,
well, thank you, Jim.
Making you the presenter.
Very good, very good. So we're gonna, there we go. Can you, and there we are. Welcome to the Oracle, the Oracle-led portion of the presentation today. Hi, my name is Ed Hayek. And what I'll start with is because some of our functionality discussion may lead a little bit into areas of some future releases. I'll put up a safe harbor statement. I do talk to Oracle development quite a bit, but I don't necessarily run the timelines. So this is something where, hey, if when we're talking about some of the future direction functionality, that is just it, future direction. So something where the release timing is until it's official, it's not yet official. So we put that up. I happen to be from Minnesota, and this is the wonderful season of snow and frost up here. This happens to be Duluth Harbor, actually, with where I caught a picture where we had the state bird actually for Minnesota is the loon, and what you see there is a flock of loons, I think, feasting on whatever fish might actually be in that canal right now. So anyway, that's our safe harbor statement, and I like to add a personal harbor in there for myself as well. But we're here to talk about supply chain management solutions, and particularly with respect to J.D. Edwards. What you may or may not be familiar with is the offering that Oracle has had for solution in on-premise type technologies, and value chain planning has been the portfolio of products and applications that Oracle has assembled to sort of answer the types of questions, perform all functions for all things supply chain, and those applications have been feature rich and have been assembled to provide a complete set of capabilities for customers for some time. One difficulty that myself as a former customer of Oracle, and we hear from other customers as well, is that the learning curve for some of these tools can be extended a bit, in part because we have had different user interfaces across certain applications. So while they've been functionally driven and specific to various functions in the supply chain, the role in supply chain has evolved over time. So what we're seeing with technology today is that instead of just a forecaster and a supply planner and a inventory engineer, basically, we now have combined roles of, say, a strategic supply chain planner who dabbles in all the areas of supply chain. And so the goal we had with the Oracle Cloud solution is something I'm particularly excited about, and really the design is to facilitate and enable any individual virtually within the organization to find information they need to make efficient and the most informed decisions possible. And so within any business system, right, any sort of planning system, there has been historically much more data available in the system than could be necessarily extracted to make decisions on in a timely manner. 20 years ago, it could take a couple weeks to assemble a report, verify the report, and then make a decision on the report, and then a couple more weeks to actually get a decision to act on that information back into the system. Well, that time has been shrinking over the years, and with this new tool, virtually in value chain planning, you could get those answers in a matter of hours, right, by rerunning the ASCP plan. And in cloud, I'm very, very excited to say it's more like a matter of minutes, basically, to get your answers and to do those planning scenario types that everybody's familiar with. So in here, what we have is a single tool, basically. So the great news is it's a unified interface. Applications being more tab-driven, or navigation between applications being more icon and tab-driven than necessarily pop-up windows. And the planning and replanning is done in a very efficient and fast way. So with the new technology that we have in this cloud solution, it is possible to ask a question and get your answer in a very timely manner, possibly even for those doing S&OP, you could possibly have a question asked and not long after, during that same S&OP meeting, have a calculated answer to that question. So really, really shortens up the timeline or lag time between finding an opportunity, acting on that opportunity, and getting results to show to basically let operations and supply chain march to those new orders. Also, I'll mention that the applications in the cloud are all mobile enabled. So depending on the hardware of choice, if you want to use a laptop with a browser, if you want to use a tablet, if there's a quick thing that somebody wants to even do on their phone, basically, you can interact with the applications and get things executed via those various platforms. I'll also mention that a new thing, a couple of things. One thing Jim mentioned earlier was the integral or incorporation of business intelligence into the application. That is now just an integral and embedded part of these applications. That there's also, we brought in social technology as well, and with that social aspect, one key area that helps with is notes and exchange of ideas. So as a plan is being worked on, developed, and going through its finalization steps in your S&OP process, conversations between various functional groups with their different ideas or things that they want to incorporate into the plan, that can now be attached to the plan via the conversation can happen via social media, and can be attached to the plan for future reference, right? So later on, months or a year later, if somebody's wondering why a certain decision was made, the notes are there to reference, basically. And what this can do is again, provide that historic context, right, around past decisions, and also, again, provide an efficient mechanism by which people, various folks, stakeholders within the S&OP process can have their input documented, have their input heard by the other functional groups, and have an ongoing conversation while that plan is being developed. So what I was going to do was stop showing PowerPoint and actually start showing some live software. So what I'll do here is we'll move over to the application itself, and when you log in, this is the view you come to. So what we have is right here. I'm logged in as I'm now a planning manager. My name is Billy Salazar. So what we start with is, number one, a social sort of summary window of showing the current conversations going on. You also notice we have sort of news, different items that other people might want to be bringing to my attention or me to someone else, and then also the plan conversation. So on the current plan we're working on, we might have some messages according to that. I'm going to go ahead and dig into that real quick, and if we click on that arrow, what we'll see is kind of that ongoing plan conversation. that that we're bringing up. And in this case, one scenario that we have is we've got one of the vice presidents basically of marketing is looking for a promotion on one of our items. And so in the past, right, that conversation might happen in the hallway or via email. And in this case, and then somebody later on might ask, well, why did we have that big plan increase? Well, here we have a document, basically a documented notes around that conversation between me, Billy, and Tom, basically the VP of marketing, talking about how high we might want to raise that product forecast. So, as Billy, basically what I can do is look at that conversation, get the recommendation back, and then go into the application directly from here to make those decisions. And so, what we do is part of the navigation is through the icons that you see, and by hitting on one of the overarching application areas, we can then drill directly into the various applications basically for our function. In this case, we're going to drill into Planning Central. And by doing that, we're going to start with, we're going to come to a overall plan health page. And so the way that the software is organized is a little bit probably different from what you're used to from Oracle software. What we have is a way to show plans via tabbed navigation. So each different plan that we might be looking at the time will be its own tab at the top band here. And then within the plan, there are different views. Many views have been pre-configured. And we start with the plan analysis view. What this is designed to do is bring to the planner's attention sort of an overall plan health picture. This is where we start blending some of the business intelligence into the actual software, the actual planning software. So here in our plan analysis view, what you'll notice is we have various information windows, or as we call them, information tiles, for different areas of the plan. First area that we're looking at is the revenue and margin plan. And so in dashboard form, we can see the overall revenue of everything in the plan. We can see the gross margin projection. This is enabled right by having your financial picture, financial plans also hooked into the software or part of the software basically, so you can have these financial projections, right, based on what the plan, what your forecasted supply and demand plan look like. And what you see is by clicking on these tiles, what you'll see in a minute is how the metrics beneath will alter as well. And so we have various capabilities. We can show graphs, tables of various style. And here's the really cool part with the software. It's all user tailorable, meaning the individual user can tailor their own views, basically according to their particular, the particular way they want to execute their business role. So while the software includes a number of pre-configured templates, pre-configured ways to look at the business, this is all also user tailorable. So our story today, right, is to look at start looking at the forecast. And one of the things that Jim mentioned was sort of consensus demand planning. So I'm going to go to the forecast comparison tile, and we started with sort of the overall volume and margin metrics. And now looking at this forecast analysis tile, we have a couple of views basically to compare. One is basically at the top, right, we have sort of the overall volume of the blue line, which is the approved S&P plan, and then the green line, which is the sales forecast. And like all good sales teams, right, they're generally a little bit higher than what we have approved in SOP, so they've got a more optimistic plan. And what we can see then down here is a little more detail behind the plan, so sort of that time phasing, right? What does the forecast look like over time between the various constituents? Basically we have the overall sales forecast from the sales group. We've got the history. The yellow bar is the year ago history, and the green bar being the final approved forecast, basically going forward. So we can kind of see how marketing is looking a little more optimistic, which is what Tom was telling us in our messages earlier. Another way that we can look at it, and this is again something where we've got the graph representation of the different product groups that we have within our plan. And in this case, we can come this overall view, so we can see overall what's going on, and then we can come into the plan directly, basically. And from here, and this is where another efficiency area comes in, and we can drill down into the various details right from the top level graphs. And so by coming in here, I can look at different pre-configured views. Again, this is tailorable. You can add or subtract views as you see fit. But what we can do from here is go straight to the forecast analysis window. So by clicking on this, basically we go to the tab that shows the forecast analysis for that particular selection of items. And so what we can see is we've got the overall product category, and then we start looking at the individual items within the category. Now, in the case of our marketing conversation, basically we wanted to talk a little bit about adjustment to forecast, and from this we can sort of agree. We can take a look at a plan that says, hey, let's look at what forecast would look like if we increased the overall shipments basically by a certain amount. And so what we can do is we can edit one cell or multiple cells at a given time. So if I want to edit those cells, we can edit them in a way where we can look at basically we can edit them by setting values, or we can increase or decrease by percentage, right? So in this case, he was wanting to increase by 40% those various items. I'm going to cancel out because I've got a plan actually where I did all this already. But we can enter that forecast change basically, and then take a look at what the supply plan means. And I'll get to that here in a little bit. So back to the overall area. And by the way, for demand planning, we can alter the tables. We can edit those tables again in a very flexible manner. So so we can look at those. The next thing to look at, and this is kind of on the balancing side. So we've got sort of a demand plan going forward and projection going forward. The next thing I wanted to kind of point out a little bit was the resource utilization. Okay, and this is another thing on the operational side, right? In the system, we're modeling certain production areas. Okay, and based on the current command plan, what the system has done is calculated the resource utilization basically of each of the various production areas. And in this case, in our current plan, we have a couple areas that are projected to be much higher than what their projected availability is going to be. So from here, we again can drill directly down into basically in this case a resource plan view. And so I'll go ahead and move over to the resource plan view. And in that view, really again, just very quickly, we've gone from an overarching metric, right, showing 150% of utilization basically, down into the details over time. So we can see a little bit of when this very high utilization is going to kick in. And so we can see over time what our availability is. Basically, in this case, it's 80 hours availability. We can see the hours requirements, okay, and then see the kind of percentage scale over time. So from here you can see, is it a 1 or 2 week spike, or in this case, right, we've got sort of a projected long-term high utilization of this production area. So what this provides is, and what that kind of means to the planning group and the production group is, hey, this is not an acute situation where we just need to work some overtime for a couple weeks, right? This is going to go on for months. So maybe take a look at bringing on additional resources, right? So your availability or resource capacity can increase, right, more medium or long term, or possibly look for maybe some outside resources to help take some of that workload off your internal production line. So again, we're coming from top level metrics, right, down into the details, and are able to sort of gain that quick picture. The other area I wanted to show is something a little bit more traditional. So we kind of looked at what the forecast, how you interact a little bit with forecast, looked a little bit how the resources can be utilized, interact with that. The next thing is kind of looking at sort of the traditional sort of horizontal plan. Okay, and this is where we can look at health of an item, right, over time, or sort of that demand picture versus the supply picture and projected availability, basically, of those various items by organization. One thing I also wanted to show out a little bit is all the tables that you see have drag and drop edit capability on the fly. Okay, so suppose I've got an item and I want to look at it across global organizations. I can do that. This is how it's organized. by a simple drag over to the side, I can now change the view to organization and item, basically. And so by moving that over, we can see organization and then all the items within the organization, basically. I can also set it up to collapse the view, expand the view further. This is one of those areas that, again, full capability of the planner to generate the views they need, gather the data they need, and not necessarily have to go outside their department or to IT necessarily to program different reports or alter different reports for them. This is all just power to the planner type of items. So going back to the plan analysis view, basically we kind of looked at the forecast a little bit, we looked at the resource utilization a little bit. Next thing I wanted to show you is a different way of looking at risks, basically, or as we used to call it, right, or we probably still do, the daily shortage report, right? So you have materials that are projected to be short or actually not in stock. What we have here is what you see is a more of a heat map view, and so the idea as projected here is the lighter the color, there isn't quite so much at risk. The darker the color, the greater the value of risk basically is at. And so from this view, we get into what I think is a key feature and new feature of the cloud software, which is the directed guidance method of going through those issues and items from the plan. So what we did was we had the conversation, right, with the Vice President of Marketing, increased volume by 40%. And so what I've done is run a plan basically to account for that increased percentage. And so what you can see is we went from about 140K of demand at risk up to over $1 million dollars of risk in sales. And so while we do have an increased demand plan, we've also got an increased challenge, right, in meeting that demand plan. And so here's what I wanted to forecast coming into forecast directed guidance. And so from here we can drill down into the demand fulfillment view for this item. And so by drilling right into there, we can look at from this point of view where our opportunities really are. And I think this is one of the key things. Again, the way this is organized is to give a view of where the issues are, right, where the problems are. But the software very quickly also calculates the solutions to those supply chain problems. And so here in this view, what we have is we're looking at that dark blue item from the heat map screen. And what you see is a summary table of the actual demand fulfillment percentage for the plan, okay, on the whole, and the potential. Looks like Oracle software has figured out how to fix all of these issues as long as the planner agrees to them. And so and also the third column is sort of the running tally. Okay, so as the supply chain planner will take some of these expedited orders into account and get them approved, we can move from that 98% all the way to the 100% potentially. So let's look at what the system is actually looking at. So here we have what I'll call kind of some of the more traditional viewpoint of here are the at-risk demands. Okay, so we're going again from that summary screen of total at-risk down into some of the details where if I want to, I can click on one of these rows and go into greater details. I can view some of the details of the order right here within the table. Then we're going to get down to what I think is the real exciting part, which is this directed guidance. Okay, so we can look at the overall summary, right, of what's possible, and now I can actually go into the orders themselves, or which orders the system would like me to modify, and see if that makes sense. In this case, we've got planned orders that we need to expedite effectively, and so pull in by 4, 5, or 9 days, basically depending on the order. And if we can do all this, then we're looking really good. So I'm an eternal optimist. Of course, when I call the supplier and ask them to do these things, they say, sure, not a problem. So what I can do is I can select one row, or I can select multiple rows at a time. And in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and accept these recommendations from the system. And so, as you see from here, we've got the check marks now, basically, that we're going to go ahead and accept these changes. The suppliers agreed to do what we want to do. Now, if I look at the recommendation summary, okay, by just accepting those, I've come almost to that 100%. There's just a couple more recommendations to take over. So we can go back down and work on the make orders, which would be a conversation with operations, and shore up that 100% basically potential fulfillment percentage. So what I wanted to get across here was a couple of things. One is a very fast sort of tour through the system, and number two, just kind of show how details and information can be brought to the attention and brought to view so that the planner can make those very quick decisions or acknowledge and approve the decisions that the system is already recommending. So from that point of view, well, what I'll do is go back to the plan analysis screen for this one, and after we accept those different changes, basically we can right from here rerun the plan, and in a matter of minutes, basically we'll have that changed viewpoint basically where we've fixed effectively that demand at risk problem. And that's the last thing I'll kind of want to leave you with is basically all of where in some other areas you might have to go to different screens, different pop-ups to execute or find new information. With this software, basically what we've done is we've changed up the architecture so that now you have sort of these command ribbons basically where we can do various operations. That view always remains the same. We can go between plans, and this is really a key thing, where now we can compare. We can go back to the original plan, basically, from a sandbox type plan and do sort of window-to-window comparisons. And the other thing that we can do basically is after we're finished rerunning the plan and have a plan that we want to approve and load, we can actually release it right from here as well. And so once we make all these decisions to alter work orders or alter purchase orders, we can release this plan down to the system, and then the purchasing group operations are now executing basically to this revised plan. So that was the tour of the system. I hope you guys enjoyed that, and I'll go back and hand the microphone back to Jim for a parting message.
Eric, thank you. I appreciate it. Or Ed, thank you. And listen, here's the deal. It's often not an either-or world, right? In terms of you must do this, you must do that in terms of software. And for many companies, everyone's at a different level of maturity, different level of experience. Some companies have already licensed pieces of these things. So if it comes down to what approach looks best or works best for us, we're certainly in a position to help you. So if you'd like to know more about that or about anything we've discussed today, please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly or visit us at avata.com on our website or in any one of our social media outlets. We know you're busy. We hope this has been helpful, and thank you very much.